he was, I don't know, one of the last ones here. We were out there cleaning up, and as he left, what time was it, 10:30, 11 o'clock? He goes, I'll text you at 2:30 tomorrow morning when I wake up for work. I woke up to check my phone. You did not text me. Difference is, at 2:30, you woke up and went to work, and I went back to sleep. But I did check to see if you texted me at 2:30 this morning. Psalm 121, when you find a place, if you go ahead and stand this evening, Psalm 121. It was 3. Oh, you slept in this morning. Psalm 121, we're going to start reading in verse 1. It says, I will lift up mine eyes unto the Lord, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Let's go ahead and have a word of prayer. Lord, I want to thank you for tonight and for the time that we can take in your word this evening. I do pray that you will speak through me tonight, Lord, and that you'll use this time. I pray this in your name. Amen. You can go ahead and be seated. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this evening. I'm going to this evening I want to bring a message on this idea. Where do you run when you need help? Where do you run for help? Every one of us face things that require that we get help. We very often don't like to ask for help. We'd rather, it seems we would rather often struggle our way through things and try to, figure it out on our own. But we all face things on a regular basis that we just can't do alone. Whether that's something like a problem that arises, and I don't care who you are or how good your life is. Every one of us face problems. We all have things that come up in our lives that we didn't expect, or things that we go through that we thought going into it that it would go smoothly, and then they don't. Things that we think, I have this completely under control, I can handle this, and then we get into it and realize, whoa, I am way over my head. When Lisa and I bought our house in Spanaway, it was 6 years ago or so, somewhere in that ballpark, and we had only lived there a very short time, and found out that we had a sinkhole issue. We had only been, I don't know, not even a week or two that we had been in the house, and the neighbor to come greet us comes and knocks on our door, introduces herself. Did you know that the fire department got called not that long ago because your gas meter sunk and they had to evacuate the neighborhood? Well, no, that wasn't disclosed to me when I bought the house. That's awesome. No one told us that, and we had no idea, and we hadn't been there long before we noticed, once again, the gas meter was sinking, and we figured out it was because with how the property was, and I'm telling this all for a reason, with how the property was, there was a hillside in the backyard, and it was only about 3 feet tall, and it sloped back toward the house. So the rainwater and the groundwater were all flowing back into the house where the gas meter was, washing away the soil. So, I decided, well, I'm gonna dig it out, and I'm gonna, make it all so it's flat. I'll just take away that hillside and put in a little drainage and put in a retaining wall. No big deal. And I thought, well, it's only 40 feet long, and I get, the more I think it, the more I think, well, this was really dumb. But I thought, well, it's only 40 feet long and 8 feet wide and about 3 foot deep. Can't be that hard. I'll just dig it out by hand. Digging's not that bad, so I can handle that. And there, it's the backyard. There wasn't really room to get like a mini excavator in there without destroying my fence. So who wants to do that? I'll deal with this by hand, except for the house was in Spanaway. So there was rocks. And I'm not exaggerating this. For every wheelbarrow of dirt that I hauled out a wheelbarrow of rocks. When I started, I didn't even have a wheelbarrow, so I just had 5-gallon buckets, and I did a 5-gallon bucket of dirt and a 5-gallon bucket of rocks in the other side, and did that. Digging it up, I broke 2 pickaxes just from whacking rocks with it, because there were so many of them. You're trying to break the soil up, and you hit a rock. It was terrible. Something I thought, going into it, I thought, this is going to be no problem. Turned out to be a whole lot of work. And we have things like that all the time in life, don't we? That things that we think at first glance, well, this will be no problem. And we look at it and we think, well, I can handle this. And we get into it and realize, I can't. We're in a situation where we need help. And really, it happens for all ages. It's Wednesday night. I know we have the kids in here. We have situations come up for kids and all the way to adults that we think, well, I can handle this. But then something comes up or something happens. We think, well, I can take care of this on our own, until we can't. Whether it's a problem like that, or whether it's something spiritual, some sort of spiritual thing that we're fighting, and we realize I can't handle this alone. I thought I could battle this alone, but I can't. We sometimes, I don't know why, I blame flannel graph, because we somehow get this idea, I am a soldier for Christ. Have you ever noticed any time, and maybe you haven't, but because maybe you didn't grow up with this, but any time the armor of God is taught, it is one soldier. So it gives us this mindset that here I am on my own fighting Satan. That is not what the Bible shows us. But because of it, and I'm not going to, that's a whole different message I'm not going to get into tonight, but because of it, we get this mindset that, well, I can fight this on my own, and I can battle this alone, but I can't. This is bigger than me. I think of Ephesians 6, verse 12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. I don't know about you, but I read that list, and I think everything on that list is bigger than me. I can't match up against any one of those things on my own. I'm going to need help. We all have times that we need help. Again, whether it's problems in life or spiritual things, whether it's things ministry-wise. I look at ministry. I realize really fast I can't do this by myself. And I'm not only talking about pastoring things, and we'll get to that, but I recognize personally I need help when it comes to preaching. Pastor said this years ago, that he views preaching, and I'm paraphrasing how he said it, but that he views preaching kind of like the widow with the cruse of oil. Because I get done preaching, and I think I have absolutely nothing left to preach. And somehow by the next time I'm supposed to preach, God's given me something that he wants me to preach again. I can't do that on my own. I had someone, it's been probably 10 years ago, a guy that I worked with who asked me, he's like, how do you come up with something to say every single week? I don't know. Because if it was me, I would have run out of things to say a long time ago. No, I recognize I need help when it comes to preaching. Some of you are saying you need more help than you realize, but we're gonna ignore that. No, I recognize ministry-wise, I need help in those things. I need help when it comes to counseling or making decisions. I need help when it comes to things like working with the teens. It's not a ministry that I take lightly. I realize it's something that God has called me to do, and that people are when I'm up here, are counting on me to hear from God and bring a message from God. I don't take that lightly. And I can't do ministry by myself. And neither can you. No, we need God's help. I don't care. I was thinking about this while studying for it. I don't care what ministry in the church you have. Whether it's standing up here, whether it's college and career, teens, or all the way down to nursery, if we're going to do ministry right, you're going to need God's help. I mean, we may be able to force our way through it for a while, but if you're going to do it God's way, you need help. So whatever area of life we're talking about, we all have times where we need him, where we can't do it on our own, which brings back to kind of the question of the evening and the focus of the message. Where do you go to? As humans, our kind of natural reaction is to turn to kind of a couple of different options. Our natural reaction is to turn to self. I've already alluded to this a few times. When things get hard, we kind of have that, well, I'm just going to dig deep and figure out a way to do it anyways. I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to turn to myself for help. For me, that's what's natural. I gave that example earlier. I got into that project and realized it was way more than I thought it was going to be. And yet I did it by myself, because that's just kind of naturally how I do it. The worst part is that Brother Hohenstreet's here. He offered to come help me. And I was too stubborn. I was going to call myself stupid. I'm not going to do that. I was too stubborn to actually take him up on it, because that's what's natural for me is, well, this is hard, but I'm just going to, buckle down and get my way through it. I'm not one who asks for help often. I think the older I get, the better I get about that, but especially as a teen and early 20s, I kind of had the mentality that, asking for help, well, that's a sign of weakness. So if something's hard, I just found a way to do it. Bo and I were talking about this, my brother and I were talking about this not too long ago, because both of us are feeling it now. He and I have both worked alone long enough that in plumbing that, if things needed to be done, whatever it was, a bathtub needed to be packed upstairs, instead of asking someone to stop what they're doing to come help, you just turn it upside down and throw it on your back. It's 300 pounds, but you just have to get it done. That's kind of the mentality that's natural to me. If there's something that needs two people, well, I'm just going to figure out how to do it one person. Often, spiritually, that's what we do. Well, I have this problem, and I'm struggling with this, but I don't want to admit weakness. I don't want to admit that this is a problem. I don't want to admit that I'm struggling, so I'm just going to, try to turn to self and see if I can force my way through it. Some people will turn to friends. Someone maybe who will help them through financial problems, or someone who will help them through difficulties, or can give advice, or maybe can give a helping hand. There are some people that for that for pretty much anything, they will go to that friend for advice or for help. Some go to family, or maybe some trusted leader. But all of those, and I'm not saying there is anything wrong with having the right kind of counsel to go to, but all of those boil down to one category: man. It's our natural reaction is I'm struggling. So I turn to men for help. I turn to either myself or to other men, but I turn to someone for help. This evening I want us to see, I guess simply this, that when we're turning to people, whether it's us or other people, we're turning the wrong way. Psalm 121, where we started out, my help cometh from the Lord. And then he spends the rest of the chapter. That was verse 1 and 2 is kind of where that is. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help? My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. And then he spends the rest of the chapter giving God's qualifications, if you will. He spends the rest of the chapter explaining why he turns to God. And when he turns to God, what God does. That's what I want us to look at tonight. When God is your help, when God is my help, number one, he's my anchor and my stronghold. Look at verse 3. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. But that first part of that, he will not suffer thy foot to be moved. The way that he words it, doesn't suffer your foot to be moved. As a kid, where we lived, there was a hill that, I don't remember now what the name of it is. As a kid, we called it the Clay Cliff, and I don't know how tall it was. I was 6, 7, 8 when we lived there, and as a kid, in my mind, it was huge. I went back as an adult, and I had told my wife about the Clay Cliff forever, and I took her back there shortly after we got married, and we drove by, and I was like, that can't be it. I mean, surely this is not it. It washed away. Something happened. That is a mound where the Clay Cliff used to be. I don't know what happened to it. It shrunk somehow. But as a kid, it was huge. And we loved, much to my mom's chagrin, we loved to play on the Clay Cliff. That my brother and our friend and myself would often race to see who could get the highest on the Clay Cliff. Every kid, especially if you're a kid like me, for kids, everything is a competition, and I was always the youngest, so literally everything was a competition to try to outdo my big brother and his friend, and it was very hard as a kid to get to the top of the Clay Cliff, so we'd always make it a competition, and early on, we'd start out, you're going to run at it and thinking, well, maybe if I get enough speed built up, I can get to the top. But it didn't take long before we figured out, well, you do that, and this is why my mom didn't love it, is you figured out if you do that, you don't get very far before you lose your footing and slide your way back down. So we figured out the trick was not speed, it was solid footing. As soon as you lost your footing, as soon as your foot started to move, started to slide, you were sliding all the way to the bottom. So rather than go as fast as we could, we'd take our time and find solid footing and work our way up. A firm place to stand is important. It was key. It's what the passage is talking about. When God is your help, he'll give you a firm place to stand. A firm place in life, some solid footing in life is an important thing. Doesn't it feel like everything in life is moving? Everything in life is constantly changing and shifting. Or to have a firm place in life where your foot is solid and you know it's not moving is an important thing. No one likes the idea of going through life with, each step you take, your foot slides a little bit. No one likes that idea. Kaylee and I don't remember how many years ago now, her and I went to the top of Mount St. Helens. One of the most challenging parts of that mountain is the last little bit of it, because you're going up where the ash from when it blew was. Why that's so hard is you're climbing elevation, and every step you take, you slide about a half a step back. That's a lot of work. No one likes the idea of going through life where you're taking a step and having to slip a little bit. You're losing that. No one, it would be like walking through your life walking on ice. Now, there's no one who is comfortable walking on ice. I shouldn't say that. I have Noah in here who plays hockey. He probably is, but most people aren't comfortable walking on ice because the whole time, if you're like me, I'm expecting to fall. You're walking carefully because you have no firm footing. No one wants that. No one wants to go through life waiting for that moment you fall. So that firm footing is important, but it's even more important when you're going through a problem. Having firm footing is important. It's even more so when you're faced with a trial. Having good footing when you're walking around on flat ground is nice, but when you're walking around, because if you're walking around on flat ground and you fall, the consequences aren't as bad. But having solid footing when you're walking next to a cliff, that's a whole lot more important. If you slip in that moment, the consequences are way worse. I just read yesterday, I think it was, because it was on on the 4th of July, that Multnomah Falls down in Oregon, that a family was going up to the top of Multnomah Falls, and a guy, the trail was wet, and a guy slipped and fell, didn't have firm footing, and fell 150 feet to his death with his wife and 3 kids watching, because he's right next to a cliff and didn't have firm footing. It's important when you're in those times where life is hard and you're facing trials, that your foot doesn't move. Those times when you think, I need help and I can't do this alone, having solid footing, having a place to anchor so that you know I won't fall. I'm secure, not because of me, but because I have a firm footing. I'm safe. Hey, that's a big deal. That doesn't come in turning to myself. That doesn't come in turning to friends or to family or any other person. Because man's footing is no better than mine. That only comes when our help is from God. When our help comes from God, He'll be our anchor. When our help comes from God, number 2, He'll always be awake. He'll always be attentive. Look at verses 3 through 5. We'll go ahead and read all of verse 3. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. I want to look at this 2 ways. Multiple times there. It talks about the Lord will not slumber. It tells me He's always on guard. I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about God falling asleep and the devil attacking when He isn't ready. You all know I enjoy going duck hunting. And duck hunting, usually you go first light. And most, that's when most of the birds are moving, and so first light is the best time to get there. The problem with first light is, to do that, you have to get up super early, drive to wherever it is you're going to be, drive to the lake, you have to load up all your gear, you have to paddle to your spot, you have to set up all your stuff, you have to get settled in the blind, and you have to do all of that at least a half hour to an hour before the daylight actually comes, or you've already scared away all the birds and you're not going to get anything. Because you want to make sure you beat everyone else to your spot, and you don't want to scare the birds away, which means it's really early. I cannot tell you the number of times that I have done that and woken up in my blind and missed first light because I fell asleep. I wasn't on guard. When God is our help, you don't have to worry about God getting bored and falling asleep. You don't have to worry about Him, not being ready for the devil's attacks. You ever thought about this? I don't know. It's something that to me, I think of fairly often. Attacks from the devil or problems of any sort, trials that we face, have never caught God off guard. It sure catches us off guard, doesn't it? I mean, it seems like trials and tribulations and attacks from the devil come at the worst possible times. And it always seems like it catches us napping. We never feel like we're ready for them, but they've never caught God off guard. The passage says God doesn't slumber, saying He's awake. He's on guard. It also means that he's attentive. Let me be more specific with that. He's attentive to me. He's paying attention to you. Reminds me of I don't know, when I really get into something. I'm not bragging about this, but I've said this before, so you all probably know this. I'm not much of a reader. I try to be. I want to be. I start books all the time. But the book really has to grab my attention really fast, or I get bored of it and set it aside and never finish it. I know some in here are big readers, and that's great if you are. It's a great quality to have that I just don't have, unless it grabs my attention. But I'll from time to time find a book that really gets a hold of my attention, and when it does, I focus on that book. And it doesn't matter what's going on around me, and it doesn't matter what noises the kids are making or the dogs are making or whatever. It doesn't distract me from what I'm reading. I am attentive to that. It's how God is toward us. He doesn't fall asleep. He doesn't get distracted. He is attentive to me. Psalm 17, verse 6, I've called upon thee, for thou wilt hear me, O God. Incline thine ear unto me, and hear my speech. It does not matter how many times I read this. The idea that God inclines his ear to me catches me every single time. And I think every single time that it does, or that I try to mention it in a message, because the fact that he stoops down to hear what I have to say, that should mean something to us. That he's listening for us, that he's watching for us, that he's paying attention to you. When God is your help, he's your anchor. He's always awake. And then thirdly, when God is your help, forgive me a little bit, I'm trying to go with A's here. He's your asylum. Not insane asylum, but I'm trying to stick with the letter A, and it's what I had. He is our asylum. Look at the verse, the end of verse 5. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. It says he is our shade. Think about this. What is shade? When it's hot and sunny, shade is a big deal. Shade is a safe place. Shade is protection. Yesterday we were here for the fireworks, and everyone set their seats in the sun. And Brian and I sat over in the shade over by the shed over here and commented on it because it was a hot, sunny day. That shade felt really good. That shade is safe. Think about the psalmist here. Where he would have been when this was written. That's a hot area where too much exposure to the sun can be dangerous. Now, shade is a form of protection from the elements. A place of shade is a safe place. You're protected. You can hide from the elements, whatever they may be there. But shade is also a comfortable place. I looked it up for this. The temperature difference from direct sunlight to shaded area, and it's not exact, but it ranges between 14 and 35 degrees cooler when you're in the shade. An average of 27.5 degrees cooler. I mean, that's a big difference. So shade is a place of comfort, a place where you can feel safe and protected. The place of shade is also a place of rest. You are safe, you are protected, you are comfortable, and you can rest. When God is your help, you can rest in him. Because he's going to provide you with a safe place. He's going to provide you a place where you are protected, a place where you can be comfortable, a place where you can rest in him. When God's your help, he'll be your anchor, he'll be always awake, he'll be your asylum. And lastly tonight, when God is your help, he will assist you. Look at verse 7 and 8. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even evermore. This passage, these 2 verses, repeatedly uses the word preserve. You think about that word and what it does. It keeps something alive. A wildlife preserve is to protect the animals that are inside of it. It helps to keep them alive from predators or things that would want to harm them. Not far from here we have Northwest Trek, which is a really cool place with the tram and all that and the animals that's in it. It's a wildlife preserve. They control the predators from being in there. The place is off limits to hunters or to anything else that might harm the animals inside. It keeps them safe and protected. Or even, and this is a slight stretch here, but even you think of things like preservatives in your food. What do? They keep food from spoiling. I'm not convinced they do much good for the people eating them, but they keep the food good longer, so there's that. Now let me put it simply this way. When God is your help, he will keep you. He will keep you. He'll keep you from evil. A few years back now, it's been, I don't remember how many years back, I brought a series on trusting the Lord, and it astounded me how many times the Bible talks about God being our shield or our refuge or our high tower, or those sorts of terms. Over and over, the Bible makes it clear he will protect because he keeps us from evil. He'll keep your soul. Often I'll when I'm explaining salvation to someone and not being able to lose their salvation specifically, Bible talks about that God holds you in His hand and that no man can pluck you out. God is holding on to us. No one can take us away from Him. You know what God is doing when He does that? He is keeping, preserving your soul. God is your help. He'll keep your path. I think of Psalm 23, He leadeth me in paths of righteousness. When God is our help, He leads our way. He guides our step and shows us the way to go. When God's our help, He's our anchor. When God is our help, He is always awake. He is our asylum. He will assist. Psalm 27 verse 1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" When God is your help, what do you have to fear? I mean that seriously. I earlier read the verse where it's talking about, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, and it lists all these things, and I said in that, those are all things that are bigger than me. And if I'm looking at I have to take them on by myself, that it's just me out here, and yeah, sure, maybe I have my armor on, but it's just me out here fighting those things, that's terrifying. But when God's my help, what do I really have to be afraid of? I mean, seriously, what can Satan possibly throw at you that God can't handle? What problem can the world really put in your way that God isn't bigger than? God is more than capable to handle our problems. But boy, do we have a hard time recognizing that. The psalmist here lays out very clearly for us that his help doesn't come from his armies, though in his position he could have. No, it doesn't come from his armies, or it doesn't come from his strength, or it doesn't come from his friends. No, that his help is from God. So tonight, here's how I want to end this message. I would challenge you to seriously look at yourself and ask the question: when problems, when trials, or tribulations come in my life, who do I turn to? Where do I run? When a trial jumps up and it catches me off guard, do I automatically go to, well, I'm going to figure out a way that I can just power through this myself? Or do I automatically go run to some friend that, hey, I need you beside me to get me through this? Or do you automatically go to God? That's where we need to go. It ought to be. It ought to be that we can honestly say, and I say that on purpose, that it's not just words, but that we can honestly say, my help cometh from the Lord. Trials and tribulations of life come, I will lift up mine eyes to the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. Let's pray. Lord, I pray that you'll help us to really desire to turn to you. It's so easy for us because it's natural. It's our human nature when trials come or when problems are in front of us that we go to self, or we go to other people rather than turning to you. When your word makes it so very clear that you want to be our help, that you're attentive, you're paying attention to to when we need your help, that you want to be our safe place, and you want to fight for us, if we'll just turn to you. Praise in your name. Amen.
Stand tonight with your heads bowed and your eyes closed.